The noise in the great hall of the galactic hegemony grew louder with each passing minute. Officials with different colored skin, blue, green, purple, and colors humans had no names for, moved quickly between computer stations. Their many eyes showed fear. Some had 4 eyes, others had 6, but all of them looked scared. Admiral Krizax entered the room and everyone became quiet. His tall, thin body covered in shiny blue scales made him look important. The 4 eyes on his face narrowed as he looked at the main screen. "Tell me again what you are seeing," he said, his voice deep and cold. A small green alien, with 6 thin arms typed quickly on a control panel. "Sir, we have detected a human ship. It is the USS Defiant. It has passed through 17 security points without being seen. It is now only 2 parsecs from Azurix Prime." Krizax hit his fist on the table. Small cracks appeared where he hit. "This is not possible. Humans do not have such technology. Their ships are slow and easy to find. They should not be able to get past even 1 security point." But the proof was on the screen. A human battleship had somehow entered the most protected space in the galaxy without anyone seeing it until now. It moved silently toward the most important planet in the hegemony. "Call everyone," Krizax ordered. "Every ship we have, stop that human vessel now." Far away on the USS Defiant, Captain Alan Miller sat in his command chair. He was a man in his 40s with short brown hair and eyes that had seen many battles. But this mission was different from any other he had done before. "Status report," Alan said calmly. Lieutenant Samantha Wright stood nearby at her station. Her dark skin looked blue in the light from the ship's controls. "Sir, all systems running perfectly. Our phase shift drive is working better than we hoped. The aliens still don't know exactly where we are." Alan nodded. "Good work, Sam." He stood up and walked to the large window at the front of the bridge. Stars shined brightly against the black of space. Somewhere out there was Azurix Prime, the home world of the aliens who had been threatening Earth for years. The aliens who told everyone they were the most powerful force in the galaxy. "Communications, check," Alan said. Linda Taylor, a woman with red hair tied back tightly, touched her earpiece. "All systems ready, Captain. We're still running silent, but we can send or receive when you give the order." Alan looked around the bridge at his crew. Each person was the best at what they did. Each had trained for years for this mission. The USS Defiant was the newest and most advanced ship ever built by humans. It had technology that even most humans didn't know about yet. "Engineering, how's our special package?" Alan asked into his communicator. Chief Engineer Kevin Washington's voice came through clearly. "The phase shift drive is stable, Captain. We can stay hidden for another 97 minutes before we need to reset the system. After that, we'll be visible for about 18 seconds. That will be our window," Alan said. "Make sure everyone is ready." He returned to his chair and pressed a button. "All crew, this is your captain speaking. For those who don't know the full mission yet, I'm going to explain. For 300 years, the galactic hegemony has told everyone they are the most advanced civilization in space. They have threatened any planet that doesn't follow their rules. They have stopped trade between worlds. They have kept many species, including humans, from growing and exploring." Alan paused, looking at a small picture he kept near his controls. It showed a young woman standing in front of a destroyed city. It was his sister, Nancy, taken after the hegemony had sent a small, warning attack to Earth 5 years ago. The attack had killed thousands. "But the hegemony has been lying," Alan continued. "Their power is built on fear and tricks. They are not as strong as they want everyone to believe. And now we are going to show the whole galaxy the truth." In the ship's armory, Lieutenant Daniel Garcia checked the special containers one last time. They were not bombs or weapons. They were small communication devices, filled with proof that the hegemony had been lying for centuries. Each one was programmed to broadcast to a different planet in the hegemony's control. "All packages ready," Daniel reported. "We can deploy on your command." Back on the bridge, Samantha suddenly straightened. "Captain, I'm picking up movement. They've spotted us." Alan wasn't surprised. "Sooner than we expected, but still within mission parameters. How many ships?" 7 large battleships moving to surround us," Samantha said. They'll be in position in about 20 minutes. Intelligence Officer Olivia Baker entered the bridge carrying a small computer. Her blonde hair was cut short and her eyes showed she hadn't slept much lately. Captain, I've finished the final checks on our information. Everything is verified and ready to broadcast. Alan nodded. Thank you, Olivia. Now we wait for them to get close enough. The ship continued moving forward, still partly hidden by the phase shift technology. On the main screen, they could see the hegemony ships moving into position. Each alien ship was 3 times larger than the Defiant. Sir, Linda called out, we're receiving a transmission from the hegemony fleet. Put it through, Alan ordered. The screen changed to show Admiral Krizax's angry face. All 4 of his eyes were wide with rage. Human vessel, you have entered protected hegemony space. Stop your ship immediately or be destroyed. Alan smiled slightly. This is Captain Alan Miller of the Earth Alliance vessel USS Defiant. We will not stop our ship. Krizax seemed shocked that a human would refuse his order. You have 1 small ship. We have 7 battleships surrounding you. You cannot win. We're not here to fight, Alan said calmly. We're here to deliver a message. What message could be worth your lives? Krizax demanded. Alan looked at Olivia, who nodded. The time had come. The message is simple, Alan said. The galactic hegemony has been lying to everyone for centuries. You are not as powerful as you claim, and we can prove it. Krizax laughed, a harsh sound like metal scraping. And how will you prove this before we destroy your ship? Alan pressed a button on his chair. By showing everyone how 1 human ship got this close to your homeworld without being detected, and by showing them these. The screen split to show 17 more human ships appearing around the hegemony fleet. They had been there all along, hidden by the same technology as the Defiant. The look on Krizax's face changed from anger to fear. For the first time in centuries, the hegemony was afraid of what would happen next. Alan leaned forward in his chair. Now, Admiral, I think it's time we talked about the future of the galaxy. A future where the hegemony doesn't make all the rules. In the control room on Azurix Prime, panic spread through the alien officials. Someone shouted the question they were all thinking, who let a human battleship get this close? The answer was simple. No one could have stopped it. 3 months before the USS Defiant appeared near Azurix Prime, Dr. Frank Rivera stood in a large room deep under the Rocky Mountains on Earth. Around him, 20 men and women in military uniforms sat at a long table. These were the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the highest military leaders of Earth. Frank was not a military man. He was a scientist with messy black hair and glasses that kept sliding down his nose. But today, the future of humanity depended on his work. Thank you all for coming, Frank said. He touched a small device in his hand, and a large image appeared in the air above the table. It showed strange patterns of light that moved and changed. What you're looking at is how the hegemony ships detect other vessels in space. General Patricia Summers leaned forward. She was an older woman with gray hair cut short and a face that showed she had seen many battles. Dr. Rivera, we've been trying to understand their detection systems for years without success. Frank smiled. That's because we've been thinking about it the wrong way. The hegemony assumes all beings in the universe sense reality the same way they do, but they're wrong. He changed the image to show a human brain next to the brain of a hegemony alien. Their brains process quantum information differently than ours do. They literally cannot understand certain patterns that human brains can easily see. The room was silent as everyone tried to understand what this meant. Are you saying we can build ships they can't detect? Asked General Summers. That's exactly what I'm saying, Frank replied. We can create technology that exists in what I call a blind spot for them. They not only can't see it, they can't even understand how it works. 3 days later, Chief Engineer Kevin Washington stood in a large hangar looking at the USS Defiant. Workers moved around the ship, adding new parts to its engines. Kevin was a big man with strong hands that had built engines since he was a child, but he had never built anything like this before. Dr. Rivera's theory is sound, Kevin said to Captain Alan Miller, who stood beside him. But turning theory into working technology isn't easy. Alan nodded. He had been chosen to lead this mission because he had fought the hegemony before and survived. How long until it's ready? Kevin scratched his beard. 2 months, maybe less, if we work around the clock. The phase shift drive will let us move through a layer of space the hegemony can't detect. But it can't run forever. We'll need to reset it every few hours, and during reset, we'll be visible. How long will we be visible? Alan asked. About 18 seconds each time, Kevin answered. Not long, but long enough for them to see us if they're looking in the right place. Alan looked at the ship that would either save humanity or lead to their destruction. Then we'll have to make sure they're not looking in the right place. 2 months later, Intelligence Officer Olivia Baker sat in a small room filled with computers. She had been working for weeks, gathering every piece of information about the hegemony that Earth had collected over the years. Her eyes were tired, but her mind was sharp. Olivia had found something important, something that could change everything. She pressed a button on her desk. Captain Miller, I need to see you right away. When Alan arrived, Olivia showed him what she had discovered. The hegemony isn't as powerful as they want everyone to believe, she explained. Most of their power comes from making other species afraid. They have some advanced technology, yes, but not as much as they claim. She showed him images of hegemony ships. Look at these. They're big and look scary, but most of them are hollow. They don't have the weapons they claim to have. Alan looked closely at the images. Are you sure about this? Olivia nodded. I've checked it 3 different ways. The hegemony has been lying to the galaxy for centuries. They don't have thousands of superweapons. They don't have unstoppable technology. What they have is a really good propaganda system. Now, as the USS Defiant faced 7 hegemony battleships, Alan remembered Olivia's discovery. The hegemony ships looked big and powerful, but he knew the truth. On the main screen, Admiral Krizax was still in shock after seeing the 17 human ships appear. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of stress in his species. This is impossible, Krizax said. How did you hide so many ships? The same way we got this close to your home world, Alan replied calmly. With technology you can't understand or detect. In the Hegemony Council chamber on Azurix Prime, panic had turned to chaos. High Counselor Vernax, the leader of the hegemony, watched the screens showing the human ships with growing fear. His purple skin had turned almost white. How is this happening? Vernax demanded. Humans are supposed to be primitive. Counselor Ethra, a female alien whose skin glowed with changing colors, stepped closer to him. We have been wrong about humans, she said quietly. They learn faster than any species we have ever seen. They adapt. They find ways to solve problems we thought were impossible. Vernax hit his hand on his chair. Send more ships, all of them. Ethra shook her head. It will take hours for more ships to arrive. And if these humans can hide their ships from our sensors, how do we know there aren't more of them waiting? Back on the Defiant, Alan gave the order they had been waiting for. Lieutenant Garcia, deploy the packages. In the ship's launch bay, Daniel Garcia pressed a series of buttons. Small objects, each about the size of a human hand, shot out from the Defiant in all directions. Each one contained data, proof that the hegemony had been lying, records of their true military strength, and evidence of how they had kept other species from developing through fear and false information. The packages were heading to every inhabited planet in hegemony space. Packages away, Daniel reported. They'll begin broadcasting in 30 minutes. Alan nodded and turned back to the screen where Admiral Krizax waited. Admiral, I suggest you contact your leaders. We need to talk. About what? Krizax asked, his voice less confident than before. About the future, Alan said. About a galaxy where the hegemony doesn't rule through lies and fear. Linda Taylor, at the communications station, suddenly called out, Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from all over hegemony space. The packages have started broadcasting early. On planets across the galaxy, beings of all kinds were receiving the truth about the hegemony. Some were angry, some were scared. But all of them were learning that the great power they had feared for so long wasn't as great as they had been told. On Azurix Prime, Vernax received the news with horror. "Stop the broadcasts," he ordered. "We can't," Ethra replied. "They're using frequencies we can't block." Vernax looked at the screens showing the human ships waiting calmly near his planet. For the first time in his long life, he felt true fear. "Who are these humans?" he whispered. "And what do they want?" The answer would change the galaxy forever. High Counselor Vernax walked quickly through the long hallways of the Central Archives on Azurix Prime. His purple skin looked pale, and his three-fingered hands shook slightly. Behind him followed 5 other counselors, including Ethra, whose normally bright glowing skin was now dim with worry. "We must reach the forbidden records before the humans do," Vernax said, his voice low. "If they find what is kept there, everything we have built will fall apart." The Central Archives was the largest building on Azurix Prime. It held the true history of the galactic hegemony, a history very different from what most beings in the galaxy believed. Ethra's skin patterns shifted to show her fear. "The humans are broadcasting our secrets to every world in hegemony space. How did they learn so much about us?" Vernax didn't answer. He had a terrible thought. What if they know about the First Contact Report? All the counselors stopped walking. The First Contact Report was the most secret document in the entire galaxy. It contained the truth about when the hegemony first met humans, 200 years ago. "They can't know about that," said another counselor named Drovak. "Only those of us in this room have ever seen it." Vernax started walking again, faster now. "We can't take that risk. We need to destroy it before they reach the archives." On board the USS Defiant, Olivia Baker was looking at a very old document on her screen. It was written in an early form of the hegemony language, and it had taken her months to translate it. But what it said changed everything humans thought they knew about the hegemony. Alan stood beside her, reading over her shoulder. "Are you sure this is real?" he asked. Olivia nodded. "It's a copy of something called the First Contact Report. It was written 200 years ago when the hegemony first found Earth. They sent a small ship to study us without us knowing they were there." She pointed to a section of the document. "This is the important part. The hegemony scientists reported that humans were the most dangerous species they had ever seen." Alan looked surprised. "Dangerous? 200 years ago, we barely had electricity." "It wasn't our technology they feared," Olivia explained. "It was how fast we learned and adapted. They watched as humans went from riding horses to building cars in just a few decades. No other species they knew of had ever developed so quickly." She scrolled down to show more of the document. The scientists recommended that the hegemony should either destroy humans immediately or leave us alone forever. But the council chose a third option: to keep us isolated and afraid, to slow our development by making us think we faced a vastly superior enemy. Alan's face showed anger as he understood. "They've been holding us back on purpose, making us waste resources on defending against a threat that wasn't as big as we thought." Olivia nodded. "And not just us. They've done the same to dozens of other young species across the galaxy." Alan turned to Samantha, who was monitoring the ship's systems. "How long until we reach the Central Archives?" 20 minutes, Captain," Samantha replied. "But we have a problem. The hegemony is moving a lot of ships to block our path." Alan thought for a moment. "Contact the other human ships, tell them to move to positions around the archives, and get me Admiral Krizax again." When Krizax's face appeared on the screen, he looked even more angry than before. "What have you done, human? Your information packets are causing riots on 12 planets already." Alan spoke calmly. "The truth often has that effect, Admiral. Especially when people learn they've been lied to for centuries." Krizax's 4 eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" "I want access to the Central Archives," Alan said. "Specifically to the Forbidden Records section where you keep the First Contact Report." The Admiral's face showed shock before he could hide it. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do," Alan replied. "And I think you know we already have a copy of it. But we want the original, and any other documents about your true policy toward Earth and other developing worlds. While they talked, Vernax and the other counselors had reached the Forbidden Records room. It was a small room deep inside the archives with special locks that only counselors could open. Inside were thousands of data crystals containing the hegemony's darkest secrets. Vernax quickly found the one he was looking for, a small blue crystal marked with the symbol for Earth. He held it up. This is it. The original first contact. Report and all our later decisions about humans. He was about to crush it when a voice came from behind them. I wouldn't do that if I were you. The counselors turned to see 4 humans standing in the doorway. They wore the uniform of the Earth Fleet with weapons pointed at the counselors. The leader was a woman with dark hair and serious eyes. Security Chief Nicole Perry, USS Defiant, she said. We'll take that crystal now. Vernax was confused. How did you get here? Your ship is still in orbit. Nicole smiled slightly. Did you think the Defiant was our only ship? We've had people on Azurix Prime for months waiting for today. On the Mao, Defiant, Alan saw the message from Nicole appear on his screen. Captain, we have the crystal and several others. Returning to the ship now. Alan nodded and turned back to Admiral Krizax on the main screen. It seems we already have what we came for, Admiral. Now we need to talk about the future. Krizax looked defeated. What future? You've destroyed everything the hegemony stands for. Not destroyed, Alan corrected. Changed. The hegemony doesn't need to rule through fear and lies. It can become something better, a true alliance of equal worlds working together. While they talked, Linda at the communications station was receiving messages from across the galaxy. Captain, we're getting responses from 27 worlds already. They want to talk. They want to know more about a possible alliance. Alan wasn't surprised. Most beings wanted peace and cooperation. They had only accepted the hegemony's rule because they thought they had no choice. In the council chamber, Vernax and the other counselors watched helplessly as their power slipped away. Reports were coming in from everywhere, subject worlds, declaring independence, hegemony officials stepping down, ordinary citizens demanding the truth. What do we do now? Ethra asked quietly. Vernax looked at the screens showing the human ships. For creatures they had considered primitive, humans had shown remarkable intelligence and restraint. They could have attacked. They could have destroyed Azurix Prime. Instead, they had simply revealed the truth. We adapt, Vernax said finally, like the humans do. Back on the Defiant, Alan received a message from Vernax. The High Counselor himself was requesting to come aboard to discuss terms. Alan looked around at his crew, at Samantha, Linda, Olivia, and the others who had made this mission possible. It looks like they're ready to talk, he said. Let's see if we can build a better galaxy together. Nicole returned with the crystal and other records from the archives. The truth was now fully in human hands. But Alan knew that having the truth wasn't enough. What mattered was what they did with it. Future of the galaxy was about to change forever. The main meeting room on the USS Defiant was not very large, but today it held the future of the galaxy. On one side of the table sat Captain Alan Miller, Olivia Baker, and Chief Engineer Kevin Washington. On the other side sat High Counselor Vernax, Counselor Ethra, and Admiral Krizax. It was the first official meeting between human leaders and the highest members of the Hegemony Council. The room was quiet as Vernax looked at the blue crystal sitting on the table between them. It was the first contact report, the document that had started everything 200 years ago. So you know the truth, Vernax said finally. His voice sounded tired. You know we have been managing your development. Alan nodded. We know you've been holding us back, keeping us isolated, making us think we faced a much stronger enemy than we actually did. Vernax's purple skin changed shade slightly, showing his discomfort. You must understand, we had never seen a species like humans before. Your rate of development frightened our scientists. In just 100 of your Earth years, you went from simple machines to spaceflight. It took most species thousands of years to make the same progress. Kevin leaned forward. So you decided to slow us down by making us waste resources on defense? By keeping us from meeting other species who might help us? Yes, Vernax admitted. The Council voted to contain humanity, to limit your growth until we could better understand how your minds work. Ethra spoke next, her skin glowing softly. We didn't want to destroy you. Some counselors suggested that, but most of us believed it would be wrong. We just wanted to guide your development at a safer pace. Alan looked at the three aliens across from him. And what about the other species you've been guiding? The 27 worlds that have already contacted us wanting to join an alliance? Krizax made a sound like a harsh laugh. They contacted you because they think you defeated us. They think your ships could destroy our fleet. We could have, Alan said quietly. But that's not why we came. We came for the truth, and to offer a different way forward. While they talked, things were changing all across hegemony space. On the planet Nelvar, green-skinned beings with long necks gathered in their cities, watching the information the humans had sent. They learned that the hegemony had been taking 3 times more resources from their world than they had claimed, and using those resources to keep other worlds in line. On Jixa Prime, small blue beings with 4 arms read the true history of the galaxy. They discovered that their ancestors had once been great builders and inventors, until the hegemony had restricted their access to certain materials and knowledge, claiming it was for their safety. And on dozens of other worlds, beings of all kinds were learning that the great power they had feared for so long had feet of clay. Back on the Defiant, Olivia placed another crystal on the table. This is what we found in your archives about your policy of resource management. You've been taking materials from some worlds and giving them to others to keep everyone dependent on you. Vernax didn't deny it. The galaxy needs order. Without the hegemony, there would be chaos. Wars between species, dangerous technologies spreading without control, or there could be cooperation, Alan suggested. Equal trading, sharing of knowledge, protection for developing worlds until they're ready to join the galactic community as full members. Ethra's skin brightened slightly, showing interest. You're suggesting an actual alliance, not human rule replacing hegemony rule? Exactly, Alan said. Humans don't want to conquer. We want to explore, to learn, to grow, and we want to do it with others, not alone. On the bridge of the Defiant, Linda Taylor was busy managing communications from across the galaxy. Messages were coming in faster than she could process them. Some were from hegemony officials wanting to surrender. Others were from worlds wanting to join the new alliance. Still others were from species humans had never even heard of before. Sam, I need help here, Linda called to Samantha Wright, who was monitoring the ship's sensors. Samantha came over to the communication station. What's happening? Linda pointed to her screen. I'm getting strange readings from the outer edge of the system. Something big is coming this way. Back in the meeting room, a message came for Admiral Krizax. He read it, and his 4 eyes widened with alarm. What is it? Vernax asked. The outer defense fleet is returning, Krizax said. They were on patrol at the edge of our space. They've received orders to attack the human ships. Alan looked concerned. Orders from whom? I thought you were in command of all hegemony forces. Krizax stood up quickly. I am, but these orders didn't come from me. Vernax also stood. We need to stop them. If they attack now, everything we're trying to build here will be destroyed. Alan touched a button on the table. Bridge, what's our status? Samantha's voice came through clearly. Captain, we're detecting a large fleet of hegemony ships entering the system. 30 battleships at least. They're not responding to our hails. Alan looked at Vernax and Krizax. Can you stop them? Krizax shook his head. They're running. Under sealed orders. They won't even listen to me until they complete their mission. Kevin spoke up. Captain, we could use the phase shift technology to hide our ships. We can't hide forever, Alan replied. And we need to show that we're serious about peace, not just running away. Olivia had been quiet, thinking. Now she said, "What if we show them what we showed you? The truth about the hegemony?" Vernax considered this. It might work. Most of the fleet commanders don't know the full truth. They believe the hegemony is as powerful as we claim. Alan nodded. Linda, prepare a special broadcast. Use all the proof we have. Send it directly to the approaching fleet. On the bridge, Linda worked quickly with Olivia to prepare the message. They included everything: the first contact report, the resource management plans, the lies about hegemony power, and most importantly, evidence that their own leaders were now working with humans toward peace. As the outer defense fleet came closer, Linda sent the broadcast. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. The fleet continued to advance. Then, one by one, the hegemony ships began to slow down. Some stopped completely. Finally, a message came from the fleet commander. "This is Fleet Commander Jorvan of the Outer Defense Fleet. We request verification of this information from High Counselor Vernax and Admiral Krizax in person." Alan looked at Vernax. "It seems you're needed." Vernax nodded. "Yes. It's time to tell our people the truth. All of it." As Vernax and Krizax prepared to return to their ship to speak with the fleet commander, Ethra stayed behind. She looked at Alan with her large glowing eyes. "You humans are remarkable," she said. "You could have used your advantage to destroy us. Instead, you're helping us become better." Alan smiled slightly. "That's what humans do. We don't just adapt ourselves, we help others adapt too." The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in 200 years, it was full of hope. 1 month after the USS Defiant first appeared near Azurix Prime, the Great Hall of the Hegemony was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Species that had never been allowed to meet before now stood side by side. There were tall, thin aliens with blue scales like Admiral Krizax. There were small green beings with 6 arms. There were creatures that looked like walking plants, and others that seemed made of living crystal. And there were humans. Captain Alan Miller stood on the raised platform at the front of the hall. Beside him were Samantha Wright, Olivia Baker, Kevin Washington, and Nicole Perry. They wore their Earth Fleet uniforms, but now these uniforms had a new symbol on the shoulder, a circle of stars representing the new Galactic Alliance. On the other side of the platform stood High Counselor Vernax, Counselor Ethra, and Admiral Krizax. They no longer wore the grand robes that had once shown their power over others. Now they dressed simply, as equals among many. Vernax stepped forward to speak. His voice carried through the huge room. "For too long, the hegemony has ruled through fear and lies. We told you we were protecting you. We claimed our power was too great to resist. We kept you separate from each other so you could not join together." He looked around at all the different beings. "But we were wrong. The galaxy does not need rulers, it needs partners. It needs all of us working together, bringing our different strengths to solve our shared problems." Vernax turned to Alan. "The humans showed us this truth. They could have used their advantage to destroy us. Instead, they offered us a chance to build something better." Now it was Alan's turn to speak. He looked out at the gathered beings. Many of them had been enemies just a month ago. Now they were taking the first steps toward becoming allies. "Humans have always been good at adapting," Alan said, "at finding new ways to solve problems. But our greatest strength isn't our technology or our cleverness. It's our belief that we can be better tomorrow than we are today." He held up the blue crystal that contained the first contact report. 200 years ago, the hegemony discovered humans and decided we were dangerous because we learned too quickly. They tried to slow us down to keep us afraid and isolated. Alan set the crystal down. But they didn't understand what truly makes humans special. Yes, we learn quickly. Yes, we adapt. But more importantly, we share what we learn. We help others grow along with us. While Alan spoke, ships from many worlds hung in space above Azurix Prime. The human fleet was there, including the USS Defiant. but there were also ships from 27 other worlds that had already joined the new alliance. More were arriving, every day. On Earth, people watched the meeting through a special broadcast. In a small house in Ohio, an older woman named Nancy Miller, Alan's sister, watched her brother with tears in her eyes. She touched the scar on her face, a reminder of the hegemony attack 5 years ago that had killed thousands. Now, her brother was helping to ensure such attacks would never happen again. Back in the Great Hall, Alan and Vernax signed the new Galactic Alliance Treaty. It was a simple document with 3 main points. All member worlds would be equal partners, knowledge and resources would be shared fairly, and no species would interfere with the natural development of others. After the signing, there was much to do. Working groups formed to discuss trade, defense, cultural exchange, and many other topics. Beings who had never spoken to each other before found they had much to learn from one another. Olivia Baker found herself working with scientists from 6 different worlds, all studying how different species perceived reality. Her discovery about how human brains processed quantum information differently had opened up an entirely new field of research. Kevin Washington was surrounded by engineers from across the galaxy, all eager to learn about the phase shift drive he had built. In return, they showed him technologies humans had never imagined. Linda Taylor, the communications specialist, was helping create a new language that all Alliance members could use to speak with each other. Daniel Garcia, who had prepared the information packages that revealed the truth about the hegemony, was now working on a galaxy-wide education system to help all species learn from each other. And Nicole Perry, who had led the team that recovered the crucial evidence from the archives, was training a new security force made up of members from all Alliance worlds. 6 months later, Alan stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant once more. The ship had been upgraded with technology from several Alliance worlds. It was faster, stronger, and more efficient than before. "Status report," Alan said just as he had on that first mission. Samantha looked up from her station. "All systems ready, Captain. The new crew members are at their posts." Alan nodded. The Defiant now had crew members from 5 different species, working alongside the humans. It was a model for how the Alliance would operate in the future. Our mission? Asked a tall, blue-scaled alien who now served as the ship's second officer. "Exploration," Alan replied with a smile. "There's a whole universe out there waiting for us to discover it. Together." As the Defiant prepared to leave orbit, Alan thought about how much had changed in just half a year. The hegemony was gone, replaced by a true alliance of equals. Worlds that had been kept apart for centuries were now learning from each other, growing together. And it had all started because one human ship had found a way to get past the hegemony's defenses. "Who let a human battleship get this close?" the hegemony had asked in panic. The answer had turned out to be more important than anyone expected. It wasn't just about the technology that had hidden the ship, it was about the human spirit that had guided it. The combination of intelligence, adaptability, and hope that made humans unique in the galaxy. As the Defiant moved away from Azurix Prime and prepared for its first jump into deep space, Alan gave the order that would start a new chapter in galactic history. "Let's go see what's out there," he said. "Together."